Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Uh, First off, I want to welcome all of the new subscribers, both here on YouTube and over on Patreon. Things have just exploded over the last month or so. I think I know why, but they have just blown up in both places. So I want to welcome all of the new subscribers. It's great to have you here. I think you are have joined. Um, Probably the smartest group of viewers and commenters on the internet. I don't mean to disparage others, but I do check in with other channels, and I continue to be impressed with the quality of the comments on this channel here, and particularly over on Patreon. Not that the ones here on YouTube aren't exceptional; they are. But you'll find for those of you who are not over on Patreon yet, we cover things over there that we don't cover here on YouTube. Everything that I put on YouTube, I also put over on Patreon, but there are additional videos that I put over there that are more specialized. We get into kind of the finishing. Um, don't want to say that. We get into subjects that are a little more focused, shall I say, over there. I paint with a broad brush here and a smaller one over there, filling in the details of things. For instance, here today, I was going to, uh, well, I'll get to that in just a second. But over on Patreon, we have an exceptional group of people. We have a lot of current and retired law enforcement, military, corrections officers, things like that, a wealth of knowledge and information that you can benefit from in addition to what I put over there. So if you are one of those, I think you'll enjoy being over there with like-minded people of similar backgrounds. You'll have a good time, just like I do. I love reading things from people that that I can associate with. And if you're not one of those, that's great to have you here. You'll probably learn a lot from different things about different things from those people, and I'm sure that you'll bring some knowledge of your own to us who have different backgrounds. So anyway, that's that on that. I do hope to see you over there. Today I was going to. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. Those who have ordered books, I have sent within about before a week ago. All of those have been shipped out. I've run out again. So anybody who's ordered within the last week or so, I'm waiting for a new shipment of the books. For those of you who may not know what I'm talking about, the Stonemont series. I wrote the Stonemont series. I put the links that you can get them down here below. They're available on Amazon. But anybody who wants autographed copies, there's an address up in the About section here, wherever it is it somewhere? That you can send. It tells you what to send and where to send it, and you can send it to me, and you'll get an autographed copy from me. Takes a little bit longer than Amazon because, like I say, I run out. People order a bunch. I run out. I guess I'll order more now. But I love hearing from you all. I love the opportunity to sign a book directly to you. It's great to be a part of you in that way. And speaking of that, and thank you all for the ones who send me letters and notes and things. I love that. And I read a lot of them to my wife and kids, and it's great. I want to thank. I have switched over from my Second Amendment cup that I usually drink my coffee out of to a one here that I got from Ridge Ranger. I'm gonna hold this up. Can you see that? Ridge Ranger, thank you so much. I love this cup. I'm going to be using this now. Matter of fact, I'm getting a little dry. So Ridge Ranger, one of our people, one of our groups. Thank you so much. Um, so, like I said, that's if you want books, that tells you how to do it. And a new bunch will be coming in soon. So if you've ordered in the last week or two, I'll get those out as soon as they come. I was going to do a video today on mafia preparedness. And that doesn't mean going around killing people, if that's what most people think of the mafia, but that's not what the mafia did mostly anyway. It did some, no more than most other people, to be honest. But going back to the old days, the Sicilian mafia, as they're called, had a long history of having to survive and thrive. Under oppressive regimes, conqueror after conqueror came through Sicily, and each time they had to learn how to kind of function within an oppressive governmental system. And we can see where that might be important to understand how to do that. Mafia wasn't the only one. It was the one that most people are familiar with, the Neapolitan Camorra, the Italian 'Ndrangheta, some others that was like that. And then I was going to do that today. And then over on Patreon, I was going to do one on surviving an active shooter situation. I'm going to do those next, but something came up today that I got, a comment that kind of precluded that. And I think that this needs to go in first. And it's about going from bondage to freedom and back to bondage and the cycle that we are in. This came from Rusty Nut 1967. Hey, Rusty Nut, thank you for sending this to me. He asked me if I had ever heard of the Tytler cycle. Now, many of you probably have. I don't know. I had not. I had not heard of it. Many of you are probably familiar with John Glubb's Fate of Empires, which I've written about. Matter of fact, I wrote about that in one of my books. I forget which one. But the Tytler cycle is extremely interesting. And Tytler was a Scottish writer and historian and a professor of history at the University of Edinburgh. Some of you, if you read it off a map, it looks like Edinburgh, but it's actually Edinburgh. And he came up with this, and he's one who said that he's stated that democracy is temporary in nature, must always be temporary in nature, because finally a loose fiscal, I'm reading off a note here that I put here, a loose fiscal policy always is followed by dictatorship. Now, I don't know if Glubb was familiar with Tytler. He probably was, because after all, Glubb was a very, very educated person. And Tytler, Alexander Tytler, preceded him by a couple of hundred years. So whether or not Glubb based his Fate of Empires on the Tytler cycle, I don't know, but he very possibly could have. I want to, and then over on Patreon, I'm just going to mention a few things here, but over on Patreon, I've put up two videos from a woman whose name I can't think of right now. She was born in a communist country, and it's a two-parter, part one and part two. There's about 10 minutes each. They are well worth watching. And she describes and she shows, she does it in a very kind of a friendly teacher type of way on a whiteboard of exactly how this goes from bondage to freedom, back to bondage, the steps along the way. Those steps, as Tytler stated them, and I'm going to read them off here. I have it on my laptop here. The first is bondage, a point of degeneration and despair where no change will help. And there is centralized control. So you can kind of think about these things and see where you think we are in this, okay? And you can see some of our history. You can follow our history in this and then see where we are. The second is spiritual. People oppose the conditions they live in and search for some unity in a common cause. Okay. Now, this woman over there on the videos that I put up on Patreon, she explains this much better. I'm just giving you the bare bones here. The third is courage, the fight for freedom. The fourth is liberty, the success of that fight and the formation of a codified freedom with the promise of opportunity. The fifth is abundance, the maturing of government and material growth and prosperity. The next, sixth, is selfishness. The greed of material gain creates corrupt special interest groups, often using the levers of government. If I'm looking weird here, I got these fancy glasses because I've always worn, readers from Dollar Tree or Walmart. And so I got these fancy glasses for way too much money that are supposed to help me see far, near, and in between. The problem is that the near is, I've got about that much space, maybe a centimeter that I have to tilt my head just right to read something. It's irritating, but that's what I've got today. After selfishness comes complacency, the sense of entitlement. Oh, are we there? Now, of legacy groups with whining, and complaining of the developing conflicting interests. Man, does that not hit us in the face right now, huh? The eighth, he says, is apathy, accepting no responsibility for problems and blaming everyone else for a system of corruption. Man. Yeah. And again, the ninth, back to the bottom, dependency, the control of independence to control corruption and the centralization of freedom leading back into bondage. Okay. Excuse me while I sit this down for just a moment. Okay, well, I think that is an excellent lesson. That's really what we need to be concentrating on now. Are we going to be able to pull ourselves out of our descendancy into dependency? Well, no, we're already dependent. Are we going to be able to pull ourselves out of this? I don't think so. Now, some people, and you've probably heard me talk about how we ought to fight against what's going on, and I don't mean that in a physical fight right now. What I mean is we ought to resist what's going on in our country, to try to reverse what we can, try to slow down what we can't reverse, but essentially to better our position for when we have to go another step. Let's just put it that way. I'm not one of these who's gonna, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Where we are on this, I think that that people can be at different positions on this. People can be at different places, certainly. But our country as a mass, as a whole, is what's important. How is it moving? Is it on? Well, we know it's not on the rise. What point of the descent are we in? And I think that's what we need to concentrate on right now. My next, and so I encourage you, go over and watch that on Patreon, and really, and whether or not you comment here or on Patreon, wherever, I'd really like to hear your comments. I think everyone would. We all learn from each other. And like I said, I've come to think that this is about the smartest bunch of people on YouTube or Patreon, not to put down others, but I just get exceptional reflections from people, and we all learn from each other. So put down yours. Think about that. What do you think about it? Do you think that it's possible to slow it down? Do you think it's possible? And here's an interesting question that Tytler doesn't address as far as I know. Now, I'm not a big student of Tytler. I didn't know about him until earlier today when Rusty Nut brought him up. But I'm going to look into him more. Is it possible to jump off of this descendancy and take a different track? I don't know. That's something that I'm going to give some thought to, and I hope you will too, and let us all know what you think about it. My next one about mafia preparation, mafia preparedness leads or extends very well from this. If we are going back from a dependency into bondage, a national bondage, which I think is entirely possible. Some would say it's assured. I never say anything is assured, but it certainly looks like that's what's going to happen. We need to know how to live within that. We need to know how to deal with that. And that doesn't mean give up and get in every line that you're told to get in. That's certainly not what these groups did. They found a way to exist within it, ensure quality of life for themselves and their families within it. Well, many other people didn't. Many other people just, became serfs and victims. but you don't want to be a victim. Just because the whole rest of the world may be in bondage doesn't mean you have to be. Okay, that's a point I want to make. And how then did they finally bring us back up to where they were among, or they reestablished themselves as having great influence within a system that had been overwhelmingly over them? These are great lessons to think about and to learn, and that's what I'll be talking about next time. Until then, think about this Tytler cycle. Let us know what you think. How it corresponds very well with Glubb's Fate of Empires. And watch this woman over on Patreon. It's a real education, and she does it in a really, really good way. So until then, I just remind you that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And the best thing we can do right now, in addition to our normal preps, which general preparation should be always the first, is to start thinking about the many, many alternatives that are going to be in our future, which ones we want to take and how we get to them. Okay. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.